Okay. So, I am going to show you guys how to do this little oil pastel exercise. We're going to be doing a warm value scale, and then we're going to be doing these value scales using just secondary colors. So we're going to do this, and this will kind of serve as your introduction to oil pastels, and then there's one more practice assignment you're going to do before you do add oil pastel to your final piece. So this is what it's going to look like when it's finished. This is what it's going to look like before we do this. So I'm going to show you guys how to make these boxes. All right? So to make these boxes, you are going to use, everybody should have a gray piece of paper. You are going to use these templates to create these. All right? So I'm going to show you guys how to do this. We're going to put this value scale. Now, I don't have enough of these templates for everyone to have one, so you will need to share. So I'm going to put this up here towards the top of my paper, and I'm just going to be very simple, and I'm just going to trace around this piece of tag board. So one person from your table, or I think there's maybe two different top templates for this one. Whoever has a chance, you can go ahead and trace the value scale just like that. And then if you guys look, there's these marks that are on it. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of copy these marks just right here around the outside of the box. And then once I remove that, that'll show me where I need to draw these lines. So then I'm just going to take the ruler and I'm just going to connect these. So you guys can go ahead and make your value scale. Once I get this done, I'll pause this and give you guys a chance to make this. Alright, so it's going to look just like that when you're finished. Alright, so that's the template that I used for that. So I'll give you guys a couple minutes to do that, and then we'll move on. Okay, so the next thing you're going to do is you are going to take the templates that say secondary color value scale on it, and we're going to put 3 on this piece of paper. So I'm going to kind of put this, I don't know, I'd say I'm about halfway down my paper, and for this one you're just going to basically trace around the template. There will be no additional lines to draw for this. But again, you need 3 of these because there are 3 secondary colors. So I'm going to put 2 here, and I'll put 1 at the bottom. It really is up to you to decide how you want to arrange these. So it's completely up to you as to how you want to arrange these. But you need 3 of them. And again, there's no additional lines that you need to draw for those. So that is the template I used for that. So I'll give you guys a couple minutes to get those on. Alright, next thing we're going to do, we're ready to now start adding our oil pastel. We're going to start at the top. We're going to do the warm value scale first, and then we'll do the secondary colors last. So what you guys need to do is grab one of the oil pastel boxes at your table. Open that up. All right, now your sets are used, okay? So there have been other people that have, other classes that have used these, so your oil pastels are not going to necessarily look like mine. All right, but if you are missing any of the colors that you need in here, there is a box full, or a bin full of loose oil pastels that you can go to and you can grab whatever you need. So White's one of those colors a lot of times we run out of very easily. The yellow, too, is another color that goes. And then, of course, the Prussian blue is another popular color, just because that's what we use to darken up a lot of stuff. So if you're missing any of these colors, go back to the bin, grab what you need, and you can even keep it with the set, too, if you're missing them. All right? Okay, so the very first thing we're going to do, again, is this value scale right here. So we're going to start with our lightest color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have you guys grab colors, and then we'll start doing this. All right? So the first color I want you guys to grab is going to be your white. Okay? And what I want you guys to do is go ahead and take the paper towel that you have and wipe that clean. You guys can even maybe see on mine here is that it's a little dirty. It's got some other colors on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my paper towel and I'm just going to kind of spin my oil pastel in that paper towel to clean it off. So I'm going to clean these off as I grab them. So now it looks nice and clean. All right, so I'm going to grab the white first. The next color that I'm going to grab is going to be this color called lemon yellow. So this is a light yellow. You could, if you don't have lemon yellow, you could use the regular yellow. That's perfectly fine. But I'm going to grab this lemon yellow, and again, I'm going to kind of wipe it off because it's got some other colors on it right now, just to kind of clean it up. So I've got white, and I've got lemon yellow for right now. The next color I'm going to grab is this color called yellow orange. It's a little hard, it's not focusing. So out of the oranges, you guys can kind of see what I've got in my pack. This is the lightest orange. So this is like, again, a yellow orange. So I'm going to just wipe that clean. All right, so far I've got white, I have lemon yellow, and I have orange. And I'll go through these colors again. You could use a regular orange if you don't have the lemon orange, or the yellow orange, I'm sorry. Yeah, you could definitely, and again, here's what's nice about these things is like, again, if I don't have this lemon yellow, and all I have is the yellow, I can use that and I can still do whatever I want with it, just by mixing other colors with it. So it's not a deal breaker if you don't have these colors. Same thing with the orange. If I don't have this yellow orange, I could use the regular orange very easily. And I'd still get the same result. The next color I'm going to grab is just plain red. There's a few different reds in the sets that are kind of floating around. I'm just going to use the regular red. And if you guys look, all of these colors do have the name of the color on the label. That is, of course, if the label is still on there. So I'm just going to use this regular red. There's a few different reds that are kind of floating around. There's this, I think this is vermilion red. There is dark rose red. There's cad red. So they're all kind of different ones. This one looks pretty much just like a straight red. A little hard to see. And then this last color is the color that's going to be kind of weird. Seeing how we are doing a warm color scale, the last color I'm going to grab is going to be this Prussian blue. So this is the darkest blue in the set. There's also a color called ultramarine blue. Now the ultramarine blue, I don't know if turning this light on would help. Maybe. Looks a little bit better. So the ultramarine blue almost looks the same as the Prussian blue, but it is a little bit brighter. The Prussian blue is the darkest one that you can grab. So that's the one that I'm going to grab. Now I do think it is important to have the Prussian blue. If you don't have the Prussian blue, by all means, you can go back to that bin and grab that. So I'm going to leave those right there. Yeah, and see if you guys look, that Prussian blue looks so dark that it almost looks black. So they're on the screen, but it is a dark blue. So I'm going to give you guys a chance to get those colors and help you find anything that you need, and then we'll get started. All right, so we're going to get things started here. I don't have that light. It's kind of yellow. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and move this box off to the side so it's kind of out of the way. So these are the only colors that I'm going to use for this warm value scale. You guys can see what it's going to look like finished. All right, so I'm going to set these off to the side. The first color I'm going to start with is going to be the white. Okay? So what I'm going to do, and you guys can feel free to do this, I'm just going to take a line of this white and I'm just going to put it under my scale like this. And so what this is going to do is indicate what layers I have in each box so that when I look at this and I want to see, okay, how did I make that color, I'll know what colors I used underneath here. So I just did a thin line of white just underneath there, and I got it under box 1 to 3. So when I do this, I am going to zoom into this a little bit here. I am going to put a thin layer of oil pastel in these first 3 boxes. Now when I do this, guys, you guys can see I'm not pressing down hard. There's no reason to with the oil pastel. It's so soft, you don't need to put any pressure down on it at all. You do want to take the time to control the oil pastel stick really well, so just make sure that you're not taking the oil pastel outside of this box. So this is as much about the value and the color as it is your ability to control how you use the oil pastel. So we want this to look nice and neat. You can turn this kind of on its side if that makes it easier for you guys. It's totally up to you. So again, I'm just going to take a thin layer of the white from the first box all the way down to the third. And that's where I'm going to stop. I'm not going to take it past the third box. And I'm just going to kind of make sure that I don't have any big gaps or patches. Just want this to look nice and even. So that's what it looks like after I've got a thin layer of white on box 1, 2, and 3. All right, and then I'm just going to set that white off to the side. Does anybody know what color you think I'm going to use next? What color do you think I'm going to grab next? Yes, I'm going to grab that lemon yellow. All right, now for this one, I'm not going to put it in the first box because I want, again, the first box to be my lightest, so that's pretty much going to be white. So this is going to gradually get darker as it goes down the scale. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this yellow, I'm just going to put a thin draw a line from box 2 all the way to box 4. Okay. So I'm going to put yellow in box 2, 3, and 4. All right. And then again, I'm just going to put a thin layer of this yellow on top of the paper. Now I've got already a layer of white underneath here, and if you guys look at what's happening when you put that thin layer of yellow on top, is that yellow is instantaneously getting brighter. This is what we talked about yesterday when I was giving you your notes about undertone. So in order to create that bright base, to make sure that this yellow looks nice and bright, I started off with a layer of white. And so that's going to give it that bright base that it needs to just pop. And again, got a thin layer. Now, I'm taking this yellow all the way down to box 4. Now, box 4 does not have a layer of white underneath it, and you can already see the big difference between these two. So this should go as sort of a a lesson for you as to the importance of making sure that you always have white as your undertone for any of those colors that you need to show up really nice, light, and bright. Because if you don't have that white down first, it's going to look dull. Okay? And again, I'm just doing a thin layer. I'm not putting any pressure down on this oil pastel. I'm not pushing down hard at all. I don't need to because the oil pastel is so soft. Again, look at the difference between yellow with a layer of white underneath it and yellow without a layer of white underneath it. So remember that. Okay? All right, so what do you think my next color is going to be? Orange. Okay, so I'm going to go, this is my yellow-orange. So I'm going to start this in box 3. It's going to go to 4 and then to 5. All right? So again, the orange is going to go from, it's going to start in 3, it's going to go to 4, and then 5. Same thing, I'm going to start with just a thin layer. I'm not pushing down really hard at all. But now, if you guys look at this third box that we have on our value scale has now 3 layers of oil pastel on it. And you can already see the colors starting to mix. And again, now I'm taking this over, let's see here, box 4 that has just a layer of yellow underneath it, so you can see what that looks like. And then I'm taking this into box 5 that doesn't have anything in it yet. So this is, box 5 is just going to have a thin layer of this yellow-orange. And it's going to look like that. Okay? So you can already see these are 3 different versions of this color already. This, the third box, has a layer of white, then lemon yellow, and then the yellow-orange on top. That's what you get when you do that. The fourth box only has the lemon yellow and orange on it. Fifth box, only orange. So you can see the difference. All right, and again, I'm not pushing down really hard at all on any of these. I can still see through the paper on a lot of this. I'll take care of that later. All right. Next color, what do you think it's going to be, guys? The red, okay? Now this one, I am going to start at box 4, and I am going to take this all the way to the end, okay? So this next layer, using the red, is going to start in box 4 and go all the way down to the end. That's why I drew that line all the way down. Again, same thing, very light touch. I do not need to push down or put any pressure down at all. And take this all the way down. Nice thin layer. Again, you want to keep everything looking nice and neat. You don't want to work outside the box, so you need to be able to control your oil pastel. So that's what it looks like that. Alright, so that's what that layer of red looks on there. Now, I am going to use this color again. So I'm going to do another layer of this, but this time the second layer is going to start in box 5 and still go all the way down to the end. So I'm using this color again for another layer. So I'm putting another layer of the red on here, but again, I'm starting this second layer of red in box 5. Taking this down, still keeping this nice and thin, so I'm not adding any more pressure to my oil pastel than I was using before. Just the only difference is same pressure, just another layer. So that's what that looks like with the second layer of red on it. Now what I'm going to do, this is going to be, I'm going to now put in this blue. Now this is where a lot of people think it's kind of weird. Like, why would I be adding blue and not black? Now if you guys remember what I talked to you about yesterday, we're not using black to darken any of this up because, again, we don't want to gray out our colors. We want our color to stay really rich. So what I'm going to do is use blue instead. So what I'm going to do a thin layer of this Prussian blue from box, let's see here, this is 6 to 7. And again, very thin. As far as the direction your lines go, you guys can take your lines in any direction that works for you. And I think even turning your paper helps. I can't really do that right now. I desperately want to be able to turn my paper, but I can't because I'm recording. But I think even turning your paper helps. So that's what that looks like with just a thin layer of that Prussian blue on top. Now I'm going to use this color again for another layer, but this time I'm just going to do the second layer of Prussian blue. It's just going to go on that last box. Again, I'm not changing the pressure of that I'm putting on the oil pastel. I'm just doing another layer. So that's what that second layer of the Prussian blue looks like. Alright, so I want to show you guys what this looks like. So here is the one that's demoed for you. And then here is the one. I don't really like that. Let me see. I don't know if that works better. It's a little bit better, I guess. But if you guys look at this, you can tell. So this one versus this one, there's a difference. Okay. This is an example, my scale that I'm working on right now with you guys. This is what you would call not burnished. So this doesn't have as many layers as this one does. You are going to be required on this project to make sure that you burnish the surface, which basically means that you put lots of layers of media on so that it covers that surface. You can see the difference between how it looks not burnished and burnished. So this has got a much more finished look to it. It's solid. The color's well established. You don't see in the paper showing through. That is not the case up here. So here's the reason why I didn't burnish as I went along, is that I want to be able to make changes to this scale to work out any problems that I have with it. So like for example, there needs to be more contrast between these two boxes right here. These two boxes almost have too much contrast, so I need to kind of calm those down. So I need to fix some things on here. Now if I would have gone ahead and started burnishing and putting down a lot of pressure from the beginning, I would not have the opportunity to fix this. Okay? So this is why you want to start off thin first, and then as you go through and you fix and adjust things, you're going to burnish it along the way. Okay? So I'm going to show you guys. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to start burnishing. This is when you're going to want that paper towel in your hand because you've got probably some other colors on these sticks. My white's still clean, so right now what I'm going to do is just go ahead and take this white and I'm going to go ahead and burnish this because I don't need any other color than white on here. So to burnish just means I'm going to put down a lot of layers. I am adding a bit more pressure to my oil pastel. But really it's more about the layers. You will notice that when you start to try to finish these squares up or burnish, you're going to find that if you press down really hard on the oil pastel, you might just squish all the material away and you'll get like a bare spot. The key here is actually to do little pressure and just add more layers. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm not really pushing down hard. I'm just lightly going over top the areas and just adding more layers. Alright, so that's what my white looks like right now. And again, I still have some spots that need to be covered up. I'm going to very lightly, again with little pressure, lightly go over top of that. To fill that in. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make adjustments. So I think this needs to be a little lighter, so I'm going to actually go over top of it with some white to lighten this up. And again, I'm not putting a whole lot of pressure down, I'm just basically adding more layers. So that's what that looks like now. Now I still could make some adjustments to that, that's fine. Now this one I kind of felt like I have too much of a hop here. I need to probably lighten this one up. Now this is my third box. Now here's the thing with this. A lot of people automatically think if you need to lighten something, what color should you use? What color do you think everybody thinks they need to use if they need to lighten something? White, okay? If I put white on that, that's probably going to turn that too pastel-y, and I don't want to do that. So instead, I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that lemon yellow. So it's the same thing with like white with even black. A lot of people think, oh, if I need to darken something up, automatically I'm just going to choose black. Again, if you do that, you're going to gray out your color. The answer is not always white or black. A lot of times the answer is a different color. In this situation, to lighten up this third box, I am going to use that lemon yellow to do that. And again, I am not really putting down a lot of pressure, additional pressure on this. I am very lightly going over and just adding more layers. All right. This one I think I need to lighten up a little bit too. So I'm gonna, again, I'm not going to use the yellow this time. I'm going to use the orange to lighten up this box. Now, a lot of people might think, well, how do you know which color to use? I honestly don't know which color to use until I start using it. If I start using a color and it's not going in the direction I need it to go in, then I'm going to change what I'm doing. So a lot of times I do not know the answer until I try something. Moving in different directions helps too to kind of fill in these spots. So there's that. I think that works. And then this one, I think it just needs more red. So I'm just going to try to finish this off with red. I don't think it needs to be necessarily any darker or lighter. So I think I've addressed my issues that I had here. So that helps me here on the end of my scale. And then I'm going to put more red on top of this 6th box just to kind of blend in that Prussian blue. So this box will kind of get like, you'll see it'll kind of look a little violet, almost like a violet, because I am mixing red and blue together. But I want this to look more of a red violet than just a middle range violet. So. And again, when I'm mixing these in, I'm not putting a lot of pressure down. I'm really just adding more layers. If you push that oil pastel down too hard into the paper, you're going to actually remove the oil pastel rather than add to it. So, light touch and just more layers is the key. And then I'm going to go ahead and put some more red on top of this last box too, because I think it's looking a little too blue. I just want to look like a dark red. Now, by the time I get to the end of this, I can still go back and make some additions and some revisions to this. In fact, this last box I'm going to make darker by putting more Prussian blue on top. But remember, when you go back through, if you've already got a lot of layers established, go in with a very light hand, meaning very little pressure. Don't press down hard, so that you're just adding more layers on top rather than squishing all those other layers underneath away. So there is my finished product. All right. So I'm going to give you guys some time to work on that. I'm going to clean off my oil pastels while you're doing that, and then I'll show you guys how to move on to the next ones. All right, next thing we're going to do is we are going to work on these secondary scales. So this is what my finished one looks like. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to have a scale for each one of the 3 secondary colors. So we're going to have orange, green, and violet. And all we're going to use is basically white and the 2 primary colors to create those scales. All right. So the first one we're going to do is going to be the orange one. All right. So what are the 2 primary colors that make orange?
Red and yellow.
Yep, red and yellow. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use, again, that same yellow or lemon yellow. I'm going to clean this off because I had still some oil pastel from my previous scale on there. So I'm going to use yellow, and then I'm going to use red. So this is all I'm going to use. All right, and then also white. Sorry. Also use white. Again, make sure you wipe and clean these off because there's probably other colors on these sticks. All right, so those are the 3 that I'm going to use for this. That's it. So I'm going to zoom into this so you guys can just kind of see this a little bit better. All right. So the reason why we're doing this is because a lot of you guys based on the produce that you include in your photograph, have a lot of the secondary colors in there. A lot of times people think, oh, well, if I'm going to paint something orange, then I need to have a bunch of orange to make that happen, and that's not the case at all. In fact, I would encourage you to try to create your own oranges, and by doing that, you're actually going to create a much better look to your project because there's going to be more variation in it. So it's not always good to have a wide variety of colors to choose from. So what we're going to do for this, and I'm going to, this is going to be a little hard to kind of squeeze on here, but I'm going to try it. I am going to draw a line just right above here with the white that goes about halfway. All right, and that's what I'm going to do then. I am going to take this white and I'm going to put a thin layer of the white on about half of this rectangle. Now these scales do not have boxes in them, so this is more of what you would call a gradated scale. So we're going to show it going from light to dark with no kind of separation between the boxes. So we're going to work on blending at the same time too. So this will be your opportunity to kind of play around with blending. All right, so I've got a thin layer of white on about half of that rectangle. Then I'm going to take that yellow and I'm going to put this kind of in, I would say, almost take up about a third of the rectangle, but it's going to just be in the middle. So I am going to put this oil pastel and the yellow just very lightly kind of in the middle third of this. Okay, so it looks like that now. So now I'm going to use the red, and I am going to take the red and I'm going to pretty much cover the last half. So I'm going to take about half, I would say. And again, I'm just kind of, I'll be honest with you guys, I'm kind of guessing on what I need to do. I don't know if I'm guessing right, and I won't know until I try this. So I'm going to put the red on about half of this rectangle. And again, I'm using very little pressure here. And as you can see, I don't really have much blending happening or really smooth transitions. Things look very kind of almost like stripes, and that's fine. I'm just getting the color laid down. I'll play around with it later. Now the red being the darkest color out of this trio of colors is that it's going to have a big effect on anything that it's on. So I'm going to be very careful just to use it very lightly. So there's what it looks like right now. So now that I've got my first layers on there, now I'm going to start kind of blending everything together, and I should start to see the orange. So now I'm just going to go back over with my white, adding more layers. Again, I am pushing down a little bit harder, but really not that much harder. It's more about adding more layers than it is adding pressure. And now that I'm going over and I'm actually overlapping some of this yellow here, now I should start to see these colors blending. If you're having a hard time kind of covering up the paper, try going in different directions. That helps. All right. And then I'm going to start with the yellow. So I'm just going to go back through my colors, basically in the same order that I started in, overlapping with the other colors, and now you can see this, it's starting to blend, and I should start to see orange. Again, for a lot of you guys, this is the first time you've ever tried to do something like this. So this is going to be a new experience. You're going to have to try all sorts of different things to figure out how to do it. I'm not going to necessarily have the answer for you because we're different people. Different things work for us. You've got to figure out what works best for you. So try different things. And again, if I'm working on something and it's not going in the direction that I want it to, then I'm going to change what I'm doing. So now I'm going to go in with my red. So I want this far side, so this right side of my box, to look really red. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of start here at this end. And bring this down. And mix that in with that. So that's kind of what mine looks like right now. I've got some fixing to do. And again, I did this without using any orange. I just used these three colors, white, yellow, and red, to create this orange gradated scale. So now I'm going to go in and just kind of fix and finish. And I'm just going to make adjustments based on what I see, what I observe. And again, as I build these up, these layers too, guys, and you notice you've got lots and lots of layers here. The trick is not to add more pressure to make change. You just need to very, very lightly go over top the surface to make that work. If you put a lot of pressure down on your oil pastel when you've got lots of layers, you're just going to smush it all out and you're going to remove it rather than add to it. I think I was getting enough orange here, so okay. All right, we are basically going to do this for each one of our secondary colors. So now, really, you have everything that you need to do the other ones. All right. So the next one I'm going to do now the green one. I'm going to zoom out for that one. All right. So for the green one, I'm going to use white. What are the two primary colors that make green, guys? What two primary colors do you mix together and make green?
Yellow.
Yep, yellow and blue. Now, for the blue, I'm not going to use the Prussian blue just because it is so dark. The blue that I'm going to use for my green is a color called cobalt blue. And I'll show you kind of the difference between these two. So you guys can see, here's the cobalt blue and here's the Prussian blue on the right. So you can see the difference on how much darker that Prussian blue is. So it's almost too dark to do this scale. I need more of a primary blue color. So I'm going to use, it's called cobalt blue. So those are the three colors that I'm going to use to make my green. And I'm going to approach it the exact same way I did the orange and in the way that I layered these colors. So I'm going to start with white first. And again, I'm going to take that white about halfway. Nice thin layer. The yellow, I'm going to put in the exact same spot I did with the orange. Just again, make sure you've got that cleaned off because you probably have orange and red all over your yellow right now. And you certainly don't want that for this scale. So wipe off that yellow. So I'm going to take this yellow and I'm going to kind of cover up again about a third of the middle. Take up this whole middle section. All right, and then the blue, I'm going to put this on about half of the rectangle, and again I'm on the right half. I can already see the green starting to pop up. Again, if you can't find cobalt blue in your set, you can look in that bin in the back, on the back table. Alright, so I've got my stripey look. Now it's time to go in and blend. And as you're overlapping these colors, you will see them kind of blend together. And again, it's not about adding a ton of pressure, but more so, it's more about adding just more layers, more thin layers. And this is again when you should start seeing that secondary color start to pop up now that you're kind of mixing and blending these colors together. Okay, so there's my green. Now, I am not going to demonstrate for you guys the violet because I think by now you know how to, you should know how to do it. It's the same kind of formula that you used for the orange and the green, just different colors. But it's going to be the same placement, okay? So, for the violet, what I would do is, I would use, again, white. What are the two primary colors that you use to make violets?
Red and blue.
Yep. So then it's going to be red, and then I'm going to use that cobalt blue again, okay, to make my violet. So those are the colors I'm going to use for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys the opportunity to work on that. And I'll have my finished example on the board that you can compare yours to help you make adjustments. But that'll be it.